Because there's a lot of stuff that goes on today where people grab a hold of style and there is no substance. And when there's no substance, there is no life for people. People can't be sustained on style.
Right, because styles change.
Thank you.
Substance remains.
Substance remains. Substance is something you can reach back on. I have people come back to me now that's been away from here for 20 years. And they said, I still hear the words that you spoke from 20 years ago. Those are the things that's been keeping me. I said, man, if that's the stuff that's been keeping you, you need to hear what we're unloading now. So this becomes very, 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 very powerful. So at POEM, I'm going to be breaking open, I believe, is a master key. They says, neurologist says it takes 10,000 hours for the brain cells to recapture and remember.
10,000 hours for the brain cells to recapture. Say that again.
To recapture, to actually do something. This was this was scientific study. I'm hoping to bring some of this out. Neurologist says that that's why they said repetition is so important. Think about it, if there's a swimmer or a golf, how many times does Tiger have to keep swinging from the time at 4 before he got it right? It's like something magical happened when you hit that 10,000th hour. I want to propose that something magical happens when you prophesy and hit your 10,000th hour in prophecy.
Yeah.
That there's a depth that is hit. There's a prediction that is made that becomes questionable, but then nobody can question.
It would be interesting that you would talk about the 10,000th hour and that limelight about the swing, the golf swing, because we know they call that player that came out of St. John's that went to Golden State, that he would stay in the gym and keep shooting foul shots. And he had a 70% average of making a foul shot. Goals that literally go beyond the time that they play to shoot foul shots. They were known as key, what they call the marquee player to their team.
But he put the hours in.
They put the hours in, keep shooting foul shots, where it doesn't matter what kind of game they're in. If the pressure is on the line, they want to make sure they are the person the ball is going to be in their hand.
Iris Jones is helping us teach today. She says, short-term memory, quick recitation, long-term memory, hours of recitation, affirming. And when you start looking at this, when you do something for hours and hours and hours, all of a sudden, and that's what meditation is, muttering to oneself over and over again, then all of a sudden the light begins to burst forth. Now you can begin to see why the scripture says you shouldn't put a novice in office. What you should put in office is hours should be in office. And so what we might need to look at is that we shouldn't ordain gifts, we should ordain hours. This is what the scripture is saying, not a novice. Do not put a novice, a person that's immature, they haven't had the hours. So because they don't have the hours, it's hard for them to respect the system. A person that has put the hours in, if you notice, a person that put hours in is less critical than a person that has no hours in. From the outside, it looks easy. From the inside, from the outside, there's a lot of people that are probably saying, why don't they do this over here in Haiti? Why don't they do that over there in Haiti? The people that experience in Haiti is not saying, why don't they? It's a whole different thing. And it's interesting how they started, making these makeshift hospitals. And another organization says it's unsafe, get out of there. And then it says, send the people out of there by such and such a time. Well, where are they going to go? But yet doctors that put hours in, they understood what's needed. See, and that's why you got to watch when you have a body governing that don't have the hours to understand the seriousness of something. So when you look at that pilot that landed that plane, what landed that plane on the Hudson? It was the hours. And that's the thing. So this is going to be a phenomenal work. It's going to be a weighty book, but I believe it's going to be something that's going to cause us to question our spirituality and then make a decision to master our spirituality. We cannot expect to be anointed without doing the hours of service. And the question is that when you are, thank you, Hagar Brown said there is no replacement for experience. Thank you. When you are looking and you're asked to prophesy, you should count it a privilege that God has you on a list and have you on a road towards mastery. Most people quit before 5,000 hours. They'll either say they get bored, they can't handle it, and it only reveals that they're not ready for mastery. So I want to also cover an area, what happens with those people. That's where you have a jack of all trades and a master of none. Well, you're so gifted, you can do everything. You can do this, you can do that, you can do this, you can do that. You do a little bit of everything. Wow, you're great at doing a little bit of everything. That shows you that's a jack, but not a master. Because they don't have enough focus that they put time long enough in anything. And that's whether it's in music. In music, a musician don't come forth until after a good 10, what I'm understanding now after reading this, until definitely 10,000 hours.
Oh, that's for sure, and I'm glad you went there because I was going to say that. Even, when you start out, it's basic to start with scales, and most people get caught with scales. Scales, they want to go right in and do the song. No. Let's work on the scales. Now, if you can master the scales, then there'll be nothing for you to get the music. But if you can master those scales, then you'll be able to get music. They'll be able to put anything before you'll be able to play that. Yeah. But the getting through the scales, and Manas, you're not going to step out on the stage and sing without going through scales. You got to warm warm up your instrument, your voice, or whatever instrument it is that you're playing. So you've got to put those hours in, and the process is not always a great process. It's tedious. It's time-taking. Oh my God, all of that. You've got to have patience, but if you have patience with it, it will work for you. You just don't come out on stage and begin singing. No, there's some training, a whole lot of training that went on before you actually were able to get out there. And that's what sustains some artists, and that's why some artists flop, because they don't have the hours,
And that is so really, because when I think about it, when I first started out in music, 5 days a week, go to music class. We first started out with, because I was a wind instrument player, we had to do the long notes, long note scales, before you even tried other variations of a scale. They didn't put no tunes before us to learn to play a tune much. You had to learn that whole thing. Two things it did something for you in your body in terms of your arbitrary for me, and it also helped to warm your instrument up. But when electronic music comes, that's why the older generation of musicians fought electronic music when it came on the scene, because they knew it was taking us away from a discipline, especially even a psychological discipline that it builds in that person. You notice something we haven't heard in the 80s, like the top-rated drummer. Why? Because electronic drums came on the scene and removed the whole habit of practicing to use the stick correctly. Now you can just go on the drum and just program it, and it does everything for you. And everybody move away from those kind of fundamentals. But something that happened on Aralda last night, while Bishop brought up the thing with the tent as being a place for the medical thing in '80, they said when the Israelis came in, they flew 16 hours, and in 8 hours got up their medical facility with tents within 8 hours. And they were showing you how organized it was, and they're done, knocked out. They didn't